What's up, guys? Today's deck tech is covering one of my favorite commanders, Osgir the Reconstructor, or as I like to call the deck, the BOGO deck. That's buy one, get one free. For every artifact you exile in the grave, you get 2 copies back. Now that's some serious value. Let's check out how I built the deck. Now, before we get into details, you know we gotta talk stats. We're gonna be covering ramp, card draw, 1-to-1 removal, and board wipes. We're running 16 pieces of ramp in this deck, but it's honestly a bit more like 32. Osgir doubles up all of your artifacts, most of which are ramp cards, and you can even double up your artifact lands. Yes, you could even technically count your lands as ramp in this deck, although for my count I didn't. Now, all that ramp really doesn't do too much unless you have cards to use it. And for card draw, we are running 16 pieces. 1-to-1 removal, we're keeping at a pretty standard 9, having a good mix of artifact, enchantment, and of course, creature removal. And for board wipes, we're running 4. I mentioned before that Osgir likes to double up artifacts. How many artifact targets are we actually running in the deck, though? Well, it's a whopping 43. Yeah, you got a few options there. We're also running cards in the deck that make his copy ability even better. Battle Mage Bracers, Rings of Brighthearth, and Annoyed Procession all double the copies that Osgir makes, which means if you exile a card to create 2 copies, if you have just one of these on the field, you're getting 4 instead. That's just nuts. We're also running cards to help untap Osgir and get even more triggers. Magerite Stone and Thousand Year Elixir are auto includes, and with the right setup, Clock of Omens and Voltaic Construct can do fantastic things. We're really banking on Osgir's abilities here, but how do we actually get the artifacts in the grave? Well, Osgir thankfully has his own built-in sack ability, but we're running even more cards to help fill up the grave before he even hits the field. Trading Post is just an all-around fantastic card in this deck. It does so many things, including card draw, but it also has an artifact sack outlet. Audacious Reshapers does sacrifice an artifact and kind of acts as pseudo card draw. It's a bit on the wild side, but with over half the deck being artifacts, you're really not going to go far in your deck before hitting something hopefully really good. Goblin Engineer is just one of the best cards in the deck. Having an Entomb in red is just so good. You can get any target you want in the grave ready for Osgir. Oswald Fiddlebender is an interesting card to be sure. Yes, it does have the artifact sack ability, but if you build your deck correctly, you can continually ramp into stronger and stronger artifacts while bringing the old ones back with Osgir. We even have a utility land to help us sacrifice artifacts with Phyrexia's Core. And last but not least, we're running some Impulse Draw with Duretti Scrap Savant's Plus ability and good old Faithless Looting. And now for some other personal favorites and just standout cards in the deck. Karn the Great Creator is one of the best cards in Osgir, so much so that it's not even fair. With the correct setup, you can not only have removal of anything you want, but you could also potentially lock down your entire opponent's boards, even their lands. But more on that later. The real benefit to Karn is his negative ability, which lets you bring back any artifact exiled with Osgir back into your hand to then cast and copy again. Aladdin is a weird old card and it is 100% a pet card in this deck, but being able to steal your opponent's artifacts turn after turn, especially if you're able to continually untap it with some of the cards in this deck meant for Osgir, is very powerful and so funny. Honestly, I don't know why more people aren't running this card in Artifacts Matters decks. It's just hilarious. And the last obscure card of the deck is Tithe. No, not Mana Tithe. Tithe. This card is from Visions and never saw a reprint. And honestly, for a color that doesn't see a lot of land-based ramp, I can't understand why this isn't played in more white decks. For 1 mana, you get a plains into your hand, at least, but more often than not, because you're in red and white, you'll be getting 2 plains for 1 mana. Why is this not played in more white decks? You can't put this many good artifact cards in a deck duplicate them and expect there to be no combos. There are a lot of combos, but we're not going to cover most of them, especially because some of them get pretty complicated and it's more fun if you figure it out yourself. We are going to cover 3, however, 2 of which are ways to get infinite mana. First up is Basalt Monolith and Rings of Brighthearth. This one's pretty common. You just stack the triggers so that you duplicate the Basalt Monolith's untap ability after you've tapped it a second time, and thus are able to create infinite mana of excess of 1 for each tap on tap cycle. The other quick and dirty infinite mana combo is Voltaic Construct and Metalworker. As long as you have at least 2 artifacts in hand, you'll be able to pay for Voltaic Construct's untap ability on Metalworker and generate infinite colorless mana that way as well. And before I get comments about Metalworker being insanely expensive, I know, but the World Championship version and proxies are very reasonable. And last but not least, this combo will make your opponents auto-concede. That is Mycosynth Lattice and Karn the Great Creator. This essentially locks all other opponents out of the game. If they let these 2 hit the field, they can no longer tap lands for mana, they can no longer activate any abilities. It's just basically game over from that point. And I think that's going to do it. There are a ton more fantastic cards in this deck that I didn't cover. Make sure to check out the link below to see the full deck list. Make sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Let me know in the comments if you're going to build this deck or already have built the deck, and if there's any cards I should add or potentially remove. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.